Hello, friends, students, faculty, alumni, and members of the Queens College community. We're so thrilled to welcome you once again to our week of events in honor of Women's History Month. This has been a great week, filled with music, with knowledge, and inspiration. We hope that you will please revisit the YouTube channel and check out any of the events that you may have missed earlier this week. And also be sure to go to the Music Library site and visit our new online exhibit feature curated by Michael Deering and Dr. Jennifer Oates. This month's exhibit is honoring the musical lives of great women. I'm Dr. Davis, and I'm an associate professor in the music education program at the Aaron Copland School of Music. I'm so excited tonight to welcome you to this wonderful, esteemed panel of Aaron Copland School of Music alumni. These women that we will hear from this evening are doing great work. They're forging meaningful careers in music, they're serving their communities, and they're embodying fully the Queens College motto, "We learn so that we may serve." To start, we will ask each of the women here with us tonight to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their career trajectories. Professor Jane Cho and I have several questions for the panelists, but we would love to hear from you as well. So please use the chat to ask questions, to send salutations to friends that you may not have seen in a little while, and to contribute to the dialogue. So again, we thank you for being with us tonight. We're excited to hear some words of wisdom from our special guests, and we'll get started with Linda Colazzo.
Hello, everyone. Susan, thank you so much for having me. My name is Linda Colazzo, or Linda Collazo. I am Ecuadorian and Puerto Rican. I am from the South Bronx, New York, and I still live here. I graduated from Queens College, the Macaulay Honors College, and the Aaron Copland School of Music in 2018. And since then, I have been fortunate enough to sing as a young artist with Sarasota Opera, Martina Arroyo's Prelude to Performance. I was supposed to go to Utah Festival for Opera and Musical Theater, but that was canceled due to COVID. And I am also a teacher of voice and piano in my community, as well as in Manhattan. And finally, I'm also one of the co-founders and co-creators of Latina Women in Opera, which is a Facebook and Instagram page dedicated to showcasing Latina and Latinx musicians and non-musicians in the opera world, and to also inspire our community to showcasing the inspiring Latina and Latinx people in the world.
Thank you, Linda. Also, could you just tell us briefly when you finished your program here at Queens?
Oh, I finished it in 2018.
Awesome, thank you so much. And now let's hear, please, from Dr. April Lynn James.
Hi, there you go. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so I'm April James, and I am a native of Hollis, Queens. I now live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I am an artistic entrepreneur, a speaker, soprano. Yes, I'm still a soprano, and I finished my BA. It was my second BA from Queens College. That one in music in '96. My first degree from Queens was in communications. And, you know, I went on from there to do my PhD in musicology up at Harvard University. Some of you may have heard of that place, small school, Boston, you know, not very famous at all. And I did there my research, some major research on operas composed by women. I wrote my dissertation on the music and life of Maria Antonia, the Electress of Saxony. And then after I finished there, I stayed up an extra year to do the exhibit In Her Own Hand, Operas Composed by Women, 1625 to 1913. I moved back to New York in 2003, 2004 to turn my research into an opera company that I ran for several years as the Maria Antonia Project. And then, and also just to have a whole career as a singer in New York City. And then in 2012, I moved to Philadelphia to sort of start over with things. And since then, I have been on the staff of the Penn Libraries, the University of Pennsylvania, and I've done research, continue to do research on women composers, doing the exhibit Women Composing for Marian Anderson as part of the 2018 Marian Anderson Symposium. And I'm taking that on the road as a poster presentation to various conferences right now. So, all right, leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. And we definitely want to hear a little more later too about your projects with women in music. So we'll circle back to that for sure. Let's hear next from Michele Wright.
Hi, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Jane Cho and Susan Davis for putting this panel together. And thank you to everyone who's on this panel with me today. My name is Michele Wright. I am originally from Queens, from Flushing, New York. Actually, I grew up in the Pomnack houses across the street from Queens College. So the Queens College campus was actually like our playground. I am a graduate of the Aaron Copland School of Music, class of '95. I received my Bachelor of Music degree in clarinet performance from ACS. I received a Master's of Music degree from the Juilliard School. While pursuing a career as a freelance musician, I discovered my passion for teaching and administration. So my experiences have led me to becoming a certified music teacher, and a lot of my administrative efforts have been on developing music programming for youth in underserved communities. I've had a broad array of leadership positions in different types of institutions, ranging from performing arts centers, local community music schools, public schools, independent schools, and now higher education. So currently, I am repositioning my career to focus on higher education. I'm pursuing a doctoral degree in higher education management from the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education, Executive Doctorate Program. My current research focus, it's nascent, but it's current, is on diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education with a focus on faculty participation in these efforts. I just want to say, music has changed my life. And I've continually viewed it as a catalyst for change and an opportunity for people to have an outlet for self-expression and to develop important life skills like discipline, collaboration, and follow through, just to name a few. As a lifelong learner, in addition to my doctoral studies, I continue to play the clarinet. I study different genres of music, and during the pandemic crisis, I've decided to really study the piano, so I've learned a few early sonatas. When I take a break from all that fun stuff, I like to hike and learn new food recipes. So thank you, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Thank you, Michele. Yeah, I think a lot of us have been doing an awful lot of cooking this last year, so my husband's not mad at that. But there's been a lot of cooking. And next, let's hear, please, from Meg Delatour.
Hi, I'm Meg Delatour. I graduated from Queens in 2019, so a year following Linda. And fun fact, Queens was a very conscious decision for me because I spent my freshman year at Crane School of Music and then transferred the following year to Queens, which is one of the best decisions of my life. I'm a violist. I had the great fortune of studying with Brett Dubner at Queens College and a few other things. I'm currently the orchestra director of Talented Unlimited High School, and as well as serving there as the orchestra director, I'm also the equity leader of the school. So have a little student committee going, and we call ourselves HEROES, so Humans Ending Racial Oppression. And we do that primarily through the arts and amplifying student voices. Outside of that, I'm also the artistic planner for interschool orchestras and also serve as the viola teaching artist on faculty there, working with the 3 ensembles there. And yeah, those are a couple of the things that have been going on for me. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree from Boston University. And something that I think is going to become a funny story later is I don't think Susan realizes that I'm someone that very much believes in fate, and Talent Unlimited was actually a school that Susan came up to me and said, there's a position opening up there that they're finally creating their own string program. I think you would be perfect for it. And that's the school that I wound up on. It was the first job I applied for, and it was the first job that I got. So I'm very excited to engage in this conversation with everyone today.
Thank you, Megan. And we're so excited that you got that job at Talent Unlimited. It's really cool to see what you're doing with the students there. I'm excited to hear more about it. And let's hear next from Asuka Elias.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. And I'm thrilled to be the panelist together with such an esteemed, distinguished panelist and alumni. My name is Asuka Elias. I am from Japan, and I came to New York in 2004 to study at Queens College. I got my Bachelor of Music in Clarinet Performance in 2008, and I got my master's degree from the Juilliard School. Since then, I've been freelancing clarinetist, and I have chamber ensemble as a member of Clara Duo, which is a clarinet and piano duo, and also a former member of Trio de Reinas, which is clarinet, violin, and piano trio. And those are also founded by all Queens College alumni and friends. And I'm also a mother of 2 children, 10 years old daughter and 6 years old son. I've been very busy being a mom for about 10 years now, but at the same time, I'm trying to be active as a performer as well as teachers. And lately, because of pandemic and also current situations, I've decided to really step into another level of my life, which is to pursue another degree, which is doctorate. And I am applying for a doctorate program right now. I'm still waiting for the results, so I can't talk about it much, but I am very passionate about how the music has an impact on social issues as well as environment. So I am still working on it, and I hope that I will be able to work on it in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Asuka. And we wish you luck. I'm sure that you will have much success pursuing your doctorate. That's wonderful. And last but not least, we have Jennifer Grimaldi-Tui.
Hello, thank you, Jane and Susan. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I'm a native Long Islander, and I graduated Queens College in the Aaron Copland School of Music in 1999 with a bachelor's degree in vocal performance. Shortly after graduating, I met my longtime voice teacher, as well as my vocal and life mentor, Dr. Sherry Overholt, who is now head of the voice department at Queens College. I feel it's important to say that she has been paramount in my development as a singer, teacher, and entrepreneur. We'll go on to that later, but after graduation, fairly quickly, I went into the Young Artist Opera Apprentice track with regional opera companies. Shortly thereafter, I got a manager, and I had the pleasure of performing numerous symphonic concert works with orchestras and symphonies around Europe, all across Europe, Mexico, numerous times across the United States. And doing concert work, which I particularly love, I must say. And I feel it's important to say that I think I got the bug of concert work and loving that even a little more than opera due to the late Maurice Perez from Queens College. He gave me my first opportunities to sing as a soloist with the Queens College Orchestra, which to my knowledge back then was a rare occurrence. As far as I remember a lot of fun memories chasing him down, asking him to please consider me to sing with the orchestra, which I think is what gave me the bug to do that. Of course, as a musician, it's imperative to be versatile. So I worked in many facets of music after graduation. I worked in artist management for a short time because I was always interested in that side of the fence. I worked as a music director in numerous churches, conducting choirs, children, youth and adult choirs, singing, planning music for the liturgies. That was a great job after graduation because I was able to have the flexibility to perform and still be in something that was music related. I also worked for a short time at the CPSM prep program at Queens College. And now one of the other things I do is I'm the vice president of a newly formed chapter of the National Association of Teachers of Singing for the Long Island and Queens chapter. So all of the arts administration and work that I had done gave me some skills that I was able to assist Dr. Overholt in launching 2 very successful programs over the years. One is called WSVI, Westchester Summer Vocal Institute, for more like emerging professionals, and QSVI, which we currently have at Queens College in the summer times, which has been in existence for 15 years. And that's geared more towards high school students and some college now. So in summary, when I look at my journey and career as a musician, I'm really very grateful for the top-notch education I got at Queens College, the arduous music theory and sight singing that we don't truly appreciate until we leave Queens. But for the mentorship that I got from Dr. Overholt, she helped me develop and nurture my innate desire to teach young voices at QSVI, which is what brought me to my next path in my career. With a zero background in business, one of my dreams that I always wanted to do was to open up a music school of some kind. But with no background in business, where exactly do you start? So with my best friend, also a singer, her name is Jennifer Barsamian, we met singing in Utah, and we were friends for a long time, and we both had this desire to teach and nurture young voices. And we just stumbled upon a program actually at Hofstra University, sponsored by the state of New York, for an entrepreneurial assistance program for small business startups. And we took the course and we went through the motions of putting this business model together for a music school. And of course, we had no intention of starting the school right away. We just were getting information. And the business professionals there and professors leading the course were very confident in us and strongly suggested that we take part in this other aspect of the course, which was sponsored by Capital One Bank. It was like a Shark Tank presentation competition for a grant to start a small business. And we were there for starting a music school. So we entered this competition, and very humbly, not knowing what to expect. And among all these other people with these fancy PowerPoint presentations, we showed up with our oak tag poster board and just stood there with some classical music playing in the background, talking about how we just loved to nurture young singers and musicians and instrumentalists, and had this dream that we wanted to pursue. And ironically, we won that grant amongst all those other very, very exciting business models. And we were able to start the Long Island Studio of Music, which has been going on now for 4 years. This is our 4th year. We started with a handful of teachers and a couple of dozen students, primarily, which were our own students at the time. And we have now gone on to 300 students with over 30 teachers. We serve all of Long Island, and we proudly have many of our teachers are Queens College alumni. and as well as current grad students, some of them. And we're very proud that many of our students have also gone on to study at Queens College and other conservatories, of course, as well. And Queens College has definitely not been a stranger to me after I graduated. And for that, I'm very grateful.
So Jennifer, I'd love to circle back to a couple things that you mentioned there, and congratulations on your business, which is very exciting. You mentioned mentorship at Queens College and CPSM, and those are 2 points that really resonate with myself as well, because I received my MSED in music education at the Aaron Copland School of Music in 2002, and 2 really pivotal parts of that experience were, one, having Dr. Larry Eisman as a mentor in the music education program. And Larry had a really profound way of seeing potential in people and drawing it out. When you didn't even know it was there, he brought it out of you. And 2, he invited me to teach some in CPSM. And that was sort of the beginning of the spark of me really seeing how awesome education can be. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I wanted to kind of open it up to everyone again to ask, what are some of the memories that you have about your time at the Aaron Copland School that really helped shape who you are today? And I don't know if you want to speak for a minute, Jennifer, about Dr. O. You probably do. And then maybe we can turn it over to Michele, because I think she had some things she wanted to mention as well.
I think I hope I said what I wanted to say about Dr. O, and she definitely helped me develop the passion I have for nurturing young voices. I specifically love that high school, middle school age, and inspiring them and mentoring them and getting them ready for college, and just giving them the love of not just classical singing, I mean, all types of singing, but just finding their voice. And I truly have to thank Dr. O for that, for having me help her develop QSVI for all these years, and then going on to opening up my own school.
That's awesome. Thank you. And Michele?
Yeah, thank you so much, Susan. I really love this question because the Aaron Copland School of Music has played a critical role in my development. And I'm truly grateful for the 5 years that I spent in my undergraduate life there. I love your description of Dr. Eisman. He was a force at CPSM as well as at Queens College. And just in general, the faculty at the Aaron Copland School of Music were, and we talk about mentorship, were instrumental not only in cultivating my talent, but for ensuring that I had the tools and encouragement that I needed to be set up to create a successful life rooted in service by providing impactful experiences and opportunities for others to obtain their hopes and dreams. As I mentioned earlier in the opening statement, I grew up in the housing projects across the street from Queens College. And when I came to the school, the faculty were just so encouraging in terms of seeing my gift and trying to get me to also see the gift that they saw. And so they provided lots of opportunities. So I just want to tell just a very quick story, because I think this is just, for my life, it was really a pivotal moment. And so basically my relationship with the Aaron Copland School of Music began when I was in high school. I was passionate about pursuing music as a career, and by 10th grade, I had not taken any private lessons to hone my craft. So I was advised that if I want to be a musician, it would be essential for me to take private lessons, as we all know how important it is. So this was a challenge for me, as my family had no money to support this endeavor, nor did they understand why I would need to take private lessons, because I was practicing every day and I was getting better on my own. So think back to 1980s, if you were here, when we still read print news, and I saw an ad in the newspaper about a concert at Colden Center, which I think now is called Kupferberg Center for the Arts, that a clarinetist named Ed Gilmore was performing there. So somehow I found my way to this concert. And after the show, I got up the nerve to approach this artist. I told him who I was and that I was looking for a clarinet teacher and if he would teach me. Well, as it turned out, he was delighted and said yes, and told me that he is teaching at the Center for Preparatory Studies in Music, CPSM. So long story short, I got an after-school job at a local donut shop so that I could pay for the weekly lessons at CPSM. So CPSM got to know me and they saw my gift and my perseverance. And I was put in the care of artists who were also college music faculty who nurtured my gift and encouraged me to work hard to achieve my goals. The school provided scholarships so that I could continue my studies. I wanted to say the late Dr. Larry Eisman started CPSM, and I am grateful to have had this pre-college experience before I stepped foot on campus as an undergraduate student, because it created a community for me and a sense of belonging and welcoming. And so when I got on campus as an undergraduate student, I felt I was already part of a family. So I just wanted to say that it's an amazing place for students to thrive and to grow. The faculty, I'm still in touch with Dr. Smaldone, who was also very instrumental. Many faculty who have passed were just really terrific. If there were challenges, they were there to support. They were trying to always find ways to nurture and to help us grow, not just as musicians, but as I said, as individuals as well.
Thank you so much, Michele. And yes, CPSM really was is a very special place and has fostered quite a lot of musical careers. So that's exciting. I think that we would love to hear from Asuka, who has something to add as well, and then Megan, and then we'll move on to another topic.
Yes, Aaron Copland School music is like an extended family in America to me. You know, despite of what's happening in this country and the current climate of how society is, I really felt Queens College was welcoming me and embraced me as who I am, and I felt safe to be in the school. It's such a diverse community, and I felt like it is okay for me to be here and I belong here. And I still treasure the friendship that I had from college days to this day. And as an international student who came to New York at the age of 19 by myself with little English, I still struggle, but back then, it was very difficult for me to, communicate. Some of the professors who I know still to this day can probably recall how I was communicating with them. And but these people really propelled me who I am and to be a better person and made me really excel my studies. And they were the motivation to do better in my life. I also want to share quickly that because of my lack of English, although I was very adventurous and somehow ambitious, I tried to register the history class for my very first semester, and one professor warmly encouraged me to withdraw and try another semester, and I did agree, but I kept my textbook. So I tried to really study hard and prepare for the following semester. And when I did take that same class for the following semester, this professor asked me, why didn't you take this last semester? And that was kind of a proof that I was able to really improve. And I was really happy that if I try hard, everybody can acknowledge me. And, that really made me a powerful motivation. to go through for another 4 years. And lastly, during the pandemic last year, a group of friends, mostly a woodwind section from the orchestra, gather weekly to just keep in touch. And it had been almost 10 years since we graduated, and we kept in touch because of the social media, but we were able to talk through Zoom, and it was such a nice reassurance of friendship. And Professor Smaldon also hopped in, and it was such a joy to confirmed that even though the time like this is very difficult, because of this friendship that I was able to have from Queens College, we were able to continue from different parts of the world, Chicago to Brazil to France and England, and the network and friendship that I gained at Queens College is maybe the biggest benefit I got from this school time. Thank you.
I love that so much, Asuka. Thank you. I do think the networks that we build in the courses that we have and the people that we come in contact with are really such a light in our lives. And I think that Dr. Smaldon is with us today, and he was really beyond thrilled to see that all of you are going to be here. And he certainly really loves staying in touch with all of the alumni, so we're excited to have him with us. Megan, do you want to share? And then Linda?
Yeah, so I'll touch on something briefly that came to mind when you asked this question, and it made me reflect back on why I made the decision to transfer to Queens. And one of them being that I feel, while it's like an unspoken spoken thing of a lot of times when you go into programs, there's a distinction between education and performance majors. And it's something that I always knew that I wanted to go into education, but I still wanted to be a really strong performer. Like, I love viola. It's one of my hugest passions. And I went to a program that was set to have a really good, really amazing education program, but as a performer, I wasn't being stimulated there. And coming to Queens, it's like this beautiful like marriage almost of both the majors that I was in almost too many ensembles by my own participation of being in chamber orchestra, having hour-long lessons weekly, being in a chamber group, being in orchestra, participating in recitals. That was a huge part of my experience and informing my teaching practices, because the reality is, to be a good teacher, you have to be a good performer. And I think that there are some programs that create us almost divide, but being in Queens, you really see how that blends together. And something else I wanted to mention that's a huge passion of mine, and you see it a lot in my classroom, in the projects that I do, and the studies and research I've done, is actually a product of being in Dr. Davis's class and Mrs. Smaldon, Karen Smaldon's class of culturally responsive teaching, which is a huge thing. I think back to a lot, like when you look at the EdTPA lesson plan and you think of this, there's that cultural aspect, cultural component to it. And I remember always sitting down and saying, okay, as a string musician, what does this mean? Being able to engage in those classes where you really delve into the material of it. Like, so many of my classes focused on that, and not many programs have that. I've sat in so many other education courses where, because of the nature of string pedagogy, it kind of takes this aesthetic approach where you're really rooted in technique without really acknowledging the person. But was the complete opposite when I stepped into Susan's class, into Karen's class, where it almost, like, in a sense, I'm sure that Susan remembers some of the stories, like it throws you through a loop sometimes. I always remember the musical problem solving project where we had to come up with those 10 creative ways to engage students with their identity in the music. And I remember sitting there going, what does this mean? And now to see that that's like everything that I do in my classroom, of asking the why, making connections with students' identity, with their cultures, with their languages, as a means of enhancing their experience in the classroom and a vehicle to learn the music through, rather than treating it as two separate things. That's something that's specific to my experience at Queens, and it's a skill and passion that I built through Queens.
Yay, I love hearing that. That's wonderful, wonderful news. And Linda, would you like to add to the discussion?
Sure. So my experience with Queens College actually began at QSVI, which I met Jennifer and Dr. Overholt there. Dr. Overholt eventually became my teacher and really helped develop my voice. But from QSVI, I just learned that at Queens College, it's a very caring and intimate environment in which the classes are small and you receive a lot of one-on-one attention. And that's what I received at Queens College. And I credit a lot of my success to that, as well as the fact that it was so cheap. Since I was a Macaulay Honors Scholar, I did have a full ride. So I was able to really focus on music without worrying about the financial piece. I also was able to explore other options. As a musician, I was very, in the beginning, I was very skeptical. As a daughter of immigrants, it's always been about becoming a teacher, a doctor, all that stuff. At Queens College, I could experience both. I could explore other majors while also studying music. And then by the end of my time at Queens College, I realized music was for me. And because I had so much individual attention, by the time I graduated from college, I had a sufficient resume to get hired for real work. And I'm very fortunate to be able to say that, because I know that in other universities, it's extremely expensive. They're big name schools in which, there are so many students. And so it is very hard to receive individual based attention. And so once you're out, if you don't have a strong resume, that can really prevent the start of a career. So I really have to credit Queens College to that. And I don't regret it. And I'm really happy with my experience there.
Thank you, Linda. And Dr. James, did you want to add something as well?
Yes, I just wanted to say that, I came into the Aaron Copland School of Music as an older student, right? I had gotten my first BA in communications and had worked in TV and in publishing, and basically hated that and said, I'm going to do what I wanted to do as a child and what I wanted to do for most of my life, and study music. And that's why I went back to Queens. Queens was my first choice of where I was going to go to study music. And I really loved studying music at Queens. I thought the faculty were great. R.B. Ornstein was one of my professors, and he actually, he saw how committed I was to really focusing on music and doing music. And he recommended me for the Mellon Fellowship, which, I got, I think, in my second year of study in music. And that fellowship paid for everything, and really was part of what then, got me into Harvard for graduate school, was being able to just focus on music and not worry about earning money. And, so my grades reflected the joy I was feeling. And I also just had the opportunity to start on my research on women composers. I remember I got to organize a concert. It was called In Her Own Hand, like 8 Centuries of Music by Women. I think that's what they called it. And I really had the pleasure of, just performing along with everyone else, but producing this concert. And then got to do a final project before graduating, focused on Francesca Caccini and her music. So I'd already gotten to start a little bit of that graduate study in musicology while being at Queens. And of course, the sightseeing and the theory courses put me way ahead of a lot of people. When I got out of Queens, I was like, I can read an alto clef, why can't you? So it was just wonderful, that part of me at Queens.
That is awesome. Yes, everyone is very proud of the rigor in our program, and as they should be, right? So all of you have gone out or went out into the field and felt pretty well prepared, and you've accomplished wonderful things. But obviously, we know that both as women in the arts and just also as musicians and artists, there are challenges that come along the way. So I wondered if anyone would like to speak to maybe some barriers or disappointments or challenges that came your way, and then how you overcame them to move beyond. Would someone like to speak to that, perhaps? Michele, thank you.
I'm not going to speak about any specific event, but I do want to say that there have been different types of barriers in my life. Some have been structural within institutions or within the Institution of Classical Music. There have been financial, as I mentioned earlier, and some were personal, internal struggles that I think we all often have. Setbacks, I like to consider as learning experiences. I actually see barriers and setbacks as very separate, as I'm sure many of you do. As a woman of color who has pursued a life in the arts, specifically in classical music, which has many challenges with inclusion on a multitude of levels, barriers were inherent from the beginning of my journey. As I say, I won't speak about specific barriers, but I just want to say having the support of faculty, of people in my life who have encouraged and supported me in ways that have helped me overcome some of those barriers. There were people who guided me around those barriers. And currently in my life, what I'd like to accomplish is working with others to break down those barriers, not just for myself, but for others. Strategies that I've used to overcome the setbacks have been looking at setbacks as a learning opportunity, as I said, and also from the perspective of opportunity. I always think to myself, well, what can I learn from this? How can I reset my intentions so that the opportunity is right for me and avails itself and I can see it? So I think, I want to say on a positive note and an encouraging note is that, if you're a student or you're about to graduate, be sure that you reach out to faculty at Queens College, at the Aaron Copland School of Music. Reach out to your network. I often think that social capital is really important. It's reciprocity. So it's a shared experience where people do for each other. And I think that because there are so many barriers, especially for different minoritized groups, especially in classical music, we need to have people around us that have shared values, shared vision, and can support us through the very, very deep challenges that we can face in this business.
Yeah, I can just jump in a little bit here because I found, while I found the journey from Queens to Harvard to be relatively seamless and good, the journey post PhD was less than I expected it to be. We're really, really hard in terms of having mentors. On my side, I discovered that mentors that I had weren't really on my side and didn't give me the support that I needed. I walked away from a visiting scholar program because, after talking to the person, one of the people who had gotten me in there and talking about, oh, hey, how can we turn this into like a faculty position? I was, and I'm like, I have skills in Baroque dance and Baroque music. I do women composers, there's got to be a place for me. And I was told we already have one of those. And I'm like, what do you mean? You have someone who does what I do and who looks like me and wants to engage? It was very off-putting. And I experienced a lot of that kind of stuff. But I also had barriers just within relationships. So like I had said at the beginning, I moved back in with my mother when I came back from Harvard, and she'd had major health crises during, that decade, from 2004 until 2012. And so, it was it was good in a way that I was pursuing an independent music career because I did have the flexibility to stay with her and take her to appointments and stuff like that. But that also didn't help me in wanting to, well, if I'm looking for work, it was very hard to actually look for teaching positions or anything, but knowing that I couldn't really get away from New York because I needed to be with her. So I've experienced a lot of challenges, and part of why I moved to Philadelphia in 2012 was to get away from some major drama in the family and to restart. And I've been searching for those mentors actually ever since, because it's just been such a challenge to make it in the field of music or really in academia.
April, I really appreciate you mentioning both of those things and just being, vulnerable and honest about that, because I think sometimes we're, as women, afraid to talk about it, right? To verbalize what's happening. I don't have children myself, but I know some of you here do, and that's a huge responsibility. But I was an only child. My parents were much older, and I found myself, as I was entering higher education, the primary caregiver for two very ailing family members, and also needing to, disperse with their estate and all of the responsibilities, and also the emotional trauma of seeing someone that you love and respect experience cognitive decline. Like, that's really hard, right, as a child. And those are some of the things that we don't always talk about. We don't feel like we have the space to be honest about because we have to be achieving these benchmarks. So I really do appreciate you sharing that. And I wanted to open it up to anyone else there, even for the moment, to talk about, like, how is it that we navigate our lives as women, as mothers, as daughters, as caregivers? Does anyone else want to share about that? Or, sometimes I think we can feel the pressure of career, but we have to, we have to negotiate this terrain while we're also attempting to publish or present or give concerts. Anybody want to share about being a mother or daughter? Or yes, Asika, thank you.
Yes, so as I mentioned, I have two children, and right after I graduated from Juilliard as a master's degree, I built my family. I started my, building a family, and me and my husband are both from different countries, and our families are not here. So we are the core people who really take care of our children. And as you might know, everything is so expensive in New York, and especially childcare is very expensive. So, being a young mother and have a gig was really a constant dilemma. And, it seems like taking this gig equals paying the babysitter fees directly, and I'm not getting any benefit except experiences, right? So I was in in the middle part, whether I should go this way or go the other way, not both. And at the end, I decided, you know what, I do want to spend time with my children, and I decided to stop receiving gigs which were happening at nights or weekdays. If it's weekends, it's very, easy to accommodate with my husband. But I had to make a choices, and I decided to then create my own space. So that's when I created a chamber ensemble with two other Queens College graduates, who are Blanca and Christine, who are violinists and pianists, and we form a trio. And they happen to be a young mother too. And we brought total of 6 children in the same room, and we rehearsed right next to us. And we're not playing children music. We're playing serious chamber music, but they don't care. So they were, along listening and hearing our conversation. They were having play dates weekly. And I really realized that even though we as a young mother and musicians cannot really choose what we want or what we should, instead, I decided to create my own space where I feel comfortable for everybody, including my children. And at the end, my children are always happy to come to the rehearsals or attend concerts without no problem. They sit well before COVID, of course, they sit well, they listen. But when I practice at home, they always sing with me, even like Elliott Carter or Stravinsky. They can sing very well in tune, and that's very interesting to me as well. And looking back, when my child was baby, carrying the double case of my clarinet in my back, carrying my baby on my carrier, and music stand, and a big bag with snack and books and toys, and riding subway to the rehearsal place in Midtown. That was pretty tough. And I'm sure everybody goes through this if you're a young mother, but I was in the middle of it, and I felt like, wow, in the future, I will be proud of this moment I am. And like Michele mentioned, like even though that when there's a difficult moment, you can always turn to a positive action, and you can create a path if there's not one. So I learned something from my experience.
I love that. And just hearing you talk about your experience, and April and Michele also, what I'm hearing from all of you is a real resilience and a persistence. Like, we're going to find a way to make this work. And I think that's really exciting because you built your children into your musical life. And they're going to always have those memories, right? And I think that that's important, right? Whatever we're doing, we can take together and shape. This reminds me of how each of you has really been a leader and an entrepreneur. So I think I'd like to turn it over to Jane, who I think wanted to facilitate some discussions about leadership and entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Yes, actually, that is a perfect segue to the next topic. So often women don't necessarily see themselves as leader, not at least immediately, but that is essential skills, essential mindset to be successful as you all are in this room. And I would like to just maybe talk and maybe ask some questions about how you view leadership among women. And do you think it's important to build leadership skills, particularly among women? So perhaps maybe, and Michele, I have a particularly a question for you because you have been in a leadership role in so many different capacity as a dean, a recent dean of Mannes College, and so many other leadership, positions. So I was wondering maybe you can just elaborate that a little bit, and then maybe, and also if you could please talk about your current research on social and racial equity in higher education.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, so my most recent position was as assistant dean of Mannes Prep, the pre-college program at Mannes at the new school. And basically the way that I view leadership is I think leadership is empowering others. That's a really important aspect. It's communication, it's delegation, it's confidence, it's inclusiveness. There are so many ways to approach it. People think about personalities, or they may think about the way that a person approaches a task. But I think leadership is multifaceted and comes in different ways. In my many roles, in leadership roles, I'll go back a little bit to the work that I did in Newark, which I am exceptionally proud of because it was an opportunity to work collaboratively with a team at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in the Arts Ed department and create programs for underserved communities, creating programs for faculty in the public schools, for teachers in the public schools, so that they could teach the students. So they learn techniques. So I'll give you an example of, we did a program called RAMP, Recorder Arts for Musical Pathways. And it was a program that I wrote the curriculum for. Dr. Lori Carter at the time was the president of the NJPAC Arts Education Department. And that was her brainchild. She wanted to have a recorder program so that, lots of students in the Newark public schools could have access to music. And access was a very important component of the work that we did. So working with the team, I created the curriculum. I worked with a team of people so that we could execute it. We created professional development programs for the teachers. The teachers learned from us. They went into the classrooms and they taught the students. The first year that we had that program, we had about 750 children in the third grade. And I know now, currently, I haven't been at NJPAC for a long time, there are over 3,000 students who currently play the recorder. And it was an opportunity to create a pathway in the arts so that the students, they play the recorder and potentially over time, they would have access to band instruments. So we created another program called Many so that we could work with the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra to create a band program and an orchestra program so that those students have another opportunity of growth. So I look at that as leadership. I look at opportunities for creating programming for different, constituents as leadership. Creating curriculum is leadership because those outcomes will impact, society or impact the community. And I think it's, we have to look at leadership more broadly. Just in terms of access, as I mentioned earlier, and this I'm really, really passionate about, is that, I didn't grow up in circumstances that people would think I should be where I am right now. And I am grateful for education and for being in an environment that was inclusive, an environment that nurtured me and gave me opportunities to grow, even if I wasn't where I needed to be at a given time. They gave us opportunities to find our place there. And so I feel that there needs to be environments that are inclusive. We're bringing lots of students into universities. There are lots of diversity agendas and at many institutions. And I think right now, since the George Floyd murder and what's happening in Georgia, with the Asian community and many other things, I won't go into the politics. People are becoming more aware and understanding what the values are and what the values need to be within these institutions. So not only are we bringing people in, we have to make everyone feel that they belong there. And so, there's lots of work that's being done. I'm really interested right now in Estela Ben Simon's work, Equity Scorecard and Inquiry, Action Inquiry, and other things. So as I said, this is kind of a beginning of my studies, and I'm really excited to delve into understanding how to find ways to make changes within institutions. But it's, as you know, it's a lot of work, and a lot of people have been working on this for a very long time. But I would like to contribute to that canon as well as the work that's being done.
That was so eloquently said. I love how you mentioned and pointed out leadership. There are many different facets of leadership, however, encouraging other and creating an environment where everyone feels welcomed and connected and supported. I just love that that element of the leadership. And I think you are doing that work. So we're just very fortunate to have you here as well. So I know a lot of, most of all panel speakers would agree. I would love to hear if anyone would like to add on to that or elaborate a little bit further of how you see leadership in music. Please, anyone jump in.
Yeah, so something that Michele said that resonated with me was her mention of equity, and it makes me think of, like, for those that are not familiar with the school that I'm in, it's a performing arts high school where we have a bunch of majors. We have musical theater, voice. So art is really their vehicle for making change. And part of being able to make change is being proactive and being a leader. So one of the things that I refer to myself rather as being the equity leader, being an adult ally. Right. So it's building that leadership skill in students to be able to evoke change in the school community. Like when we address things like disparities in grades and stuff like that, the students that are part of my team actually look at grade data that's present in the school community, and they look at it through the lens of race, through the lens of communities that they're coming from, access to devices, all of that plays a role in what happens in the school community. They look at that and create suggestions and actionable tools that can be used to assist and really make change in the community. And one of those things is also addressing the issues within the arts, because I think it's something I've experienced at navigating being a performer as a woman of color. It's something that all of these students, Talent Unlimited, while it's a performing arts school, is most of the students are of Black and Latino descent. So we all are navigating this predominantly white space, and being able to address that is really, really, really important. Something that the students had an idea for was creating an artist panel that addressed those inequities in the arts. So they had a conversation and invited Julia Bullock, sopranos Julia Bullock, podcaster Garrett McQueen, and composer activist Daniel Romaine, which was amazing. But part of that wasn't just inviting them. My role in that was supporting students to actually have a productive and actionable conversation. So forming questions that dealt with what they were trying to understand, what they were doing to be successful, understanding the climate that they're also a part of, and being able to make change outside of the school walls, because that's a huge thing. One of the things that we talk about in our school community is that it's a safe space, but the reality is when you step foot into the world, it's not a safe space. So how do you navigate that? And that part of that is that leadership aspect of it. How do you voice, how do you disrupt inequities when you see them, and while still preserving your sense of self? So it's something that we work on as a school community. It's something that also they see through the lens of education. Like the student leaders are actually currently co-planning culturally responsive lesson plans with me to see how they work in the classroom. So they get an insights view of what's actually going on. And it's something that's very important. I can kind of speak on forever about like my issues with standard orchestra repertoire, but it's something that they see it and they feel it in their education. Bettina Love talks about mattering a lot, and it's something that the students really, really want to see embodied by their educators as well. So there's multiple lens of what equity means in terms of leadership, in terms of being the student, in terms of being a human being. It's a lot of different things, but when I think of my role in it, it's supporting them to see how you navigate making those changes.
Hi, I was hoping to speak a little bit about this topic about women in the music industry in such a primarily long-time male-dominated industry. It's such an honor to be a female business owner, female musician in a leadership position in any capacity. It's really important to show the younger generation that women can be leaders, especially in the music field. Even when I was a student at Queens College, it was male dominated there as professors. but I remember Dora Pershing being a really strong female professor there. And she was an influence as well to me in many ways. I used to work for an artist manager who, Isabel Wolf, who was one of the only female artist managers in classical music at that time. Again, very rare instance. And that was a really big inspiration to me. I worked in the Catholic Church as a music director, obviously big male dominated field, not only on the religious side, but as the musicians, they're often male. So it was always something very important to me to follow that passion and in leadership as a musician and as a singer. I've sung with many, many, many orchestras. Only one has been a female conductor over all of the ones that I've worked with. It's just amazing to me. And I think it's really important that we continue on that path of being strong women and in leadership positions as musicians, business owners, entrepreneurs, educators.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I think, one of the things that we've all really been learning recently is how representation matters. So it really does matter to see women in leadership positions. It matters to see women and men, right? But people who look like us in the leaders that we interact with in our daily lives. I'm hearing some similar themes in a lot of what people are talking about, and that relate to an area of research for me that's really important, which is this idea of artistic citizenship, right? So artistic citizenship is this concept that, we're musicians and artists who can use and leverage our talents and our voices to better the world around us, right? So it's this idea that we can have music as a catalyst for change, like Michele mentioned earlier. I know that Linda is doing some work with her Latina Women in Opera, right? And some other work with diverse composers. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. And then I don't know if Michele wants to jump in again about music as a catalyst for change.
Thank you. So I have always been passionate about showcasing music by composers from Latin America. This passion did inspire me to co-create Latino Women Opera on Instagram, and in particular, create and direct the monthly concert series, which is committed to showcasing Latina and Latinx opera singers in their own virtual concerts on the Latina Women Opera Facebook page, with programs that have a requirement of including BIPOC and women composers, as well as compositions in the Spanish language. The concert series has been very successful. Our singers on average have made $150 to $200 per concert, which the concerts are 30 minutes each. And at this point in time, since we are still a new organization, the singers have been able to take all of the profit. It is moving to be able to help singers in my own community shine and to help them financially during this pandemic by giving all the proceeds to them. It is also moving to see that people want to hear music by diverse composers and that they also want to study this music. The applications I receive as a part of Latino Women in Opera, when we receive applications for this concert series, it's really moving to see all the Black composers that are in their program, the Latinx composers that I have never heard of, and even compositions in Indigenous languages. So it's really, really moving to me. And I think it has been able to impart change that I was unable to see when I studied music all my life since I was 13 and since I was even 7. All I would see was compositions by white male composers. So it's really inspiring to be a part of that change. I was also able to contribute to the reconstruction of the Professional Performing Arts School middle school voice curriculum, and have included units for the students to study music by Black composers, including gospel music and Motown, and music by Latinx composers, including mariachi, Latin jazz, and more. That's what I'm really excited to contribute to what I do as an artist citizen.
I love it. I always say, we all love Bach, Beethoven, and the boys. I always say we play Bach until we die. Absolutely, but it can be both and, right? We can do all of this other really rich repertoire. I think April wanted to also share.
Oops. Yes, yes, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
that's why I started the Maria Antonia project. You know, I went back to Queens to study music, not only for myself, but because I knew that music by women was missing. You know, women's voices were missing from the discussion. And so I was really happy when I had the chance to do my dissertation and then later the exhibit, you know, in her own hand. And you know, because I was looking at music, you know, I sing, so I'm looking at music by women for voice, and you know, looking at opera. And when I came back to New York City, I definitely had the idea, let's turn this into an opera company to get this music out of the archives and onto the stage. You know, because the part of the problem is that people just, they don't know that this music exists because it's not in editions. You know, we don't have performing editions. We have more now than we used to, but we still don't have, you know, equity when it comes to performing editions of music by women. And so that was part of what I was trying to do, is like just raise the visibility of that. And even now with my current project with women composing for Marian Anderson, at least now I'm dealing with a 20th century topic, and so the music is extant. You know, these are a lot of sheet music. It's dealing with her sheet music collection, and that music is extant. But still, people don't know about it because, you know, when I did my exhibit, I just recently did a talk, you know, virtual talk about it. And you know, one of the questions, I started with a poll, you know, what's the percentage of music by women that you think it would be in Marian Anderson's sheet music collection? And a lot of people said, you know, 10%. And I'm like, well, actually it was 25%. It's not, you know, and you know, of course, it's what was funny about that for me too, is that that percentage surprised me, because when I first thought about it, I didn't know what I would find, and then to find so much of it. And it's really wonderful, and it's a diverse assortment of women who wrote for her
Yeah,
too.
that's really interesting because didn't a lot of people start to specifically write for her or
Oh
to,
yes, yeah. Once she became famous, then you know, all kinds of people were sending her music, you know, and so Florence Price, you know, the first
amazing.
African American female symphonic composer, you know, that she collaborated with Anderson on quite a few songs, and also Margaret Bonds knew Anderson, but there are also, I mean, there's a woman by the name of Lilian Ivanti. She was a soprano, and she's considered the first African American to have sung a major role in the grand opera in Europe. You know, so preceding, you know, before Anderson was on the stage of the Met, Ivanti was on the stages of Europe.
Wow.
And so, and Ivanti also composed. So, you know, it's a really interesting mix of women who composed for Marian Anderson, including Frida Bucchi, who did this album with Anderson in the 60s called Snoopy Cat, The Adventures of Marian Anderson's cat, Snoopy. You know, they collaborated on this. I mean, it's a beautiful album it's basically art songs for children. And they collaborated on this, and it's still available. You can hear snippets of it on YouTube and get the album through Smithsonian Folkways. It's really, so it's like, I love
It's
trying to,
cool. I
yeah.
mean, it's, you know, you start to go down this rabbit hole and you realize how do we not know about these people and about these works? And, you know, why aren't we getting to study this? So I love that that so many of you here today are doing this work to center this music and these composers. And we also see that, you know, there's a galvanization that happens, right? There's an empowerment that happens when you start to see a trend where, oh, we care about these women's voices, then we feel empowered to share more. So I love that so much. I think Megan wanted to share briefly about diverse composers as well, and then we'll wrap things up. Although I feel like I kind of want you all here for another 3 hours so that we can talk about all of these things because you're amazing. Megan?
Yeah, something I wanted to jump in just because hearing all this is so amazing. And I think one of the things about it is making sure that it finds its place in the classroom as well. Like it's such like visibility is motivation, right? So I'll just reference when I was in elementary school, when we were playing Beethoven, when we were playing Brahms, going through music, going to all these concerts and not seeing myself in not only in the music, not seeing myself on stage, that caused me to disconnect with my musical experience. And it's something I'm very in tune to now, but it took me participating or finding out about Sphinx and going to the summer program and being surrounded by myself and being in an environment where I'm playing music by people that look like me, that's what made me fully engage with the music. Something I did this year is I made a proactive decision not to play, for lack of better terms, any dead white composers. It was a very active decision because as much as I love Brahms and I am someone that I have the nerdiest thing on me is that I have a tattoo of the viola theme from the German Requiem. So I do love Brahms, but these people are known. Like I used to make this comparison with viola. Like when people make viola jokes, when you're a child, you know what a violinist looks like. When you think of Yo-Yo Ma, when you think of the cello, but you don't really think of anything when you think of the viola. It's the same thing in terms of repertoire. Like I know all of these composers, I have experiences with them, and they're valid experiences with them. But there's also something to be said about playing music by Black composers that, if not in terms of the pedagogical aspects of it and the technique aspect of it, the same thing you're getting from Essential Elements and playing Good King's Wenceslas, I can get by playing music by Black composers and actually get to go into the historical context of it. One of the pieces that we're playing in my ensemble now is we're playing music by Manuel Pons, and we're playing the Walker lyric for strings. That's able to foster a genuine conversation with students, that you engage them still with music making, but you're able to have a genuine dialogue about the emotional influences of it. And for the students, it's motivation because they're able not just to form an emotional attachment to the music, there's a cultural connection. And I think that gets lost a lot of times in the classroom when we're dealing with repertoire because of that idea of like we get so lost in this standard string repertoire. And like when I look at the NISMA manual, sometimes I lose my mind a little bit just looking through it and not being able to have some of the works that I'm working on with students in the classroom not being valued as much, but they're so much more genuine connections in that repertoire, if not more technique involvement in it. So it's something that's a very important idea that I think not only lends itself outside performance spaces, but as being embedded in the education process itself.
Definitely, there is more work to be done.
So I'm
Right?
just going to jump in if that's okay.
Yes.
Listening to all of these conversations has been really terrific and wonderful. And Susan, you're just such a great moderator. And I know you're an alum, and I just thought it would be great to hear from you. Earlier we talked about Dr. Eisman and mentorship, and you're on the faculty of the Aaron Copland School of Music. And I think it would be interesting because there's a lot of discussion in higher education right now about diversifying faculty and that sort of thing. And maybe you can speak a little bit more about your road to becoming a faculty member and also mentorship and how that played a role in your choices and where you are now.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, CUNY is, to me, the institution that truly elevates people's lives, right? One of the joys that I have working for CUNY is knowing that we are, as so many of you mentioned, right, accessible and affordable. But then people get their start with us and they go out and they have careers. And that was true for me. I am Italian American. I think I was telling someone the other day, I just recently found out via DNA that I'm Sicilian. So Watch out, everybody. I joke about that. But I was the first person in my family to go to college. And it was the affordability of CUNY that allowed me to get a higher degree. And then that was a stepping stone to doctoral work, as it has been for so many of you, right? But it was the teachers that I worked with in my master's degree, which was, Dr. Eisman and Richard Sang. And I mean, Richard Sang, he kicked my butt a little. As we talked about the rigor of the program, which is great, and I learned so much. But it was Dr. Eisman who really gave me, I guess, a space to find out who I was as a teacher, and he really encouraged me to pursue higher education. And I ended up going to NYU. I mean, in part because that was Dr. Eisman's alma mater. And so I was like, I'm following in his footsteps. But one of the things that I just really love about my time at Queens was just the openness and the support and the mentorship, and also just the pedestal or the uplifting of people into the field. So when I got out into the teaching field, I just continued that, like paying it forward nature that I got from CUNY. And when I was out as a string teacher, like Megan, right? I was out teaching strings. I taught for 14 years. I still love teaching kids, and I conduct festivals, and I work with the little ones all the time too, because I just adore the field. But it was through that time that I saw just what a need we have to be each other's advocates and mentor one another and help each other grow. And that's how I ended up in higher education, because I just love working with young teachers and seeing, their eyes light up, just like I did in Dr. Eisman's class. When he gave me a conducting challenge, and then I like lived for another day, because we all were terrified of him, but like in a good way, because he always kept moving the bar line of what he wanted you to do and achieve. So there's a really wonderful balance of challenge and support, the bubble. That I think set me on this journey. And honestly, I feel humbled. I feel humbled to be in room 214 in the same classroom that I kind of came through, and to walk those paths, and to know that I have that honor and privilege now. And I hope I hope I'm doing a good job, and I hope that I'm carrying on the memory. I mean, one of the things that, as I said earlier, and then I'll wrap us up, but I really mean this so much about Larry, is that he really did, he just had that special quality of being able to see talent and draw it out of people, right? And every time I go to NISMA, I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, "Oh, Dr. Eisman," and others. I mean, I think April mentioned, Professor Orenstein, and how he was an inspiration. And we know, the stories of so many of the faculty there. So it's a treat to get to walk among everyone and to be a part of the faculty there. I hope I haven't said too much. I'm sorry. But obviously we need to wrap up. It's been really so wonderful to hear from each of you tonight, and to just count ourselves lucky of being your peer group, right? And being with you in the field. If you could summarize in just a short phrase, maybe we could go around one more time, just a word of advice or a word of encouragement that you would like to share with others who are here with us today. I'm thinking of the students who are, currently finishing their last couple of years with us at Queens, and they don't know what lies ahead. Any thoughts, words of wisdom and advice that each of you might want to share Let's do Linda and then Michele, and we'll see who else wants to chime in.
I definitely have one piece of advice, and it's that, of course, practice, but along with practicing, this career is all about maintaining connections and relationships. It is so crucial when you are young to keep every single contact. And I think this is something that Jane Cho taught me. Keep every single contact, have a Google sheet with all of the emails of people who support you. It could be someone who lives in your building. It could be someone you only met once. I swear to you, I have an email list and I send it out. And there are people that I've only met once that I never thought I would ever meet again that are moved by my story, and they have donated to me when I needed help. They have supported my causes. They have seen my concerts. It's really amazing. And I know a lot of people are afraid to take that step, but it's really important to career development. It's important to your success, as well as social media. Really learn how to create a website, really learn to use Instagram efficiently and keeping it clean and professional. And really just learn to use those tools. They will help you and will keep people thinking about you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. I was going to talk about networking, but you did such a good job. I'm going to forget about that. But I totally agree with you. I think it's really an important part of everything that you do in anything that you choose to do, not just as an artist. The other thing I want to say is that being open to learning is really important. The word that has been very prevalent in my life, especially most recently, is iteration. And iteration basically is the repetition of a process in order to generate an outcome. So learning to play a musical instrument is an iterative process. Musicians are highly skilled in the science of iteration. So use it to your advantage as you enter the professional world. Continue to build upon the skills and strengths that you already have, and look at challenges as learning opportunities.
I would just piggyback on that and just to say, again, open-minded, versatility, very, very important. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one specific area of music. There's so much out there to explore and so much out there that you can play a wonderful part in. So it's really important to be open-minded and to explore all avenues whenever possible.
I would like to say that when I was early 20s, when I faced obstacles, I thought, oh, I failed, I'm over, my career is over and I cannot move on. Maybe too dramatic, but that's, I think the young people, react in a very honest and purest way. So I can say that prime point of your career is not about 20s or 30s. And as you can hear, I'm learning so much from everybody today that you can continue working, like Michele, who I know so dearly for a long time, that she's still working, towards creating so much, valuable things in the society. So I can say that it's a marathon, it's constantly moving. You can take a break. If you hit a wall, you celebrate it, you take a rest, and then maybe try to see a different angle. And you might find a totally different things, just like I am now. Since the pandemic hit, I cannot be on the stage. What am I gonna do? And then, as I kept digging in, then I found something that I felt really passionate about, and you really never know what's gonna happen in your future. So I would say that, keep on trying and never give up.
I'll add to that. This is not easy work, but it's important work. So a lot of the times that I get into those zones of, it's very easy to get lost in frustration when you're breaking these barriers of thinking of my why. and keep letting that why keep you grounded.
And for me, I would just say to always keep a positive connection to spirit, because that's been one of the things that's gotten me through the rough patches, is really having a good spiritual practice and always bringing myself back to the positive of what I can get out of whatever it is I've experienced. So I strongly encourage people to keep that going.
And Jane, what about your advice for us?
I have to actually borrow one of the co-speakers from the music career development course who just came in, and she spoke about, don't worry so much. It will be okay. So just take good care of yourself and take good care of others, and things will be okay.
Thank you. I needed that reminder. Ladies, really, thank you so much for sharing tonight. Things have been crazy for many of us. But it is really just a blessing to hear from you, and I'm inspired by each of your stories. I'm so inspired, and we need to stay in touch so that we can do this again. We need to have you back, obviously, but really, really thank you for sharing, and also just for being honest and authentic about who you are and what your paths have been, because that's what we need as inspiration to keep moving forward. But I know that personally I feel not only inspired but also uplifted and challenged in a healthy way to continue to reinvent myself based on a lot of the things that you shared today. This has been really awesome. And honestly, I mean, I'm just so proud of, who we are as a part of the Aaron Copland School of Music, and who the women are, and getting to be in your presence has really been a treat. So thank you so much. And we look forward to crossing paths with you again, and hopefully welcoming you to campus again sometime in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.